Hello and welcome to another one of our special podcasts here. Thank you for joining us for the Get At It Gaming. I'm one of your hosts, Ben,
I'm Alex.
and we have been doing these specials for YouTube, and we're going to kind of talk about it. We're going to talk about last time we talked about the Sonic movie, great animation. Today we're going to talk about something a little different. Um, Alex is already laughing. I feel like I owe Alex dinner or Starbucks or something. So I don't have the actual discs with me. Alex has them, he's borrowed mine, but we watched China O'Brien 1 and 2. There they are in all their glory. Um, this was a re-release of the movies that came straight to video in 1990 through Vinegar Syndrome, which is also the same one. I don't know if you can see behind me, but they did the 10th anniversary documentary for the gosh, I'm totally losing my train of thought.
Nintendo Quest.
Yes, Nintendo Quest. So Ice was there. I was looking at Nintendo Quest because Alex was like, "Hey, they have it up." Bought it, and I'm like, "I'm gonna look around to see what else." And I was like, "Ooh, look at this gem here, just waiting for me to buy it." So this comes with both movies on Blu-ray and 4K. It comes with a bunch of extras. I don't know if Alex watched. Did you watch any of the extras?
No, because they're not on the 4Ks. I only put in the 4K discs. And
Yeah,
so
they're
since
not.
the 4Ks are just the movies, I didn't.
So what we did is we watched both movies. We're going to talk about them today. I do want to start off is, and I don't want you to give me the impression yet, Alex, but I was telling Alex that these movies were my early teenage years. Uh, Going to a friend's house, going to the video store, picking out some movies. He always picked up UHF with Weird Al Yankovic, and he's like, "Hey, you can pick out one too." And I'm like, "Oh, look at this! It's martial arts, and it's with a lady. Let's go." Brought it home, and that's when I first watched it. I think I was like 15 or 16. I think I was like 15 when I first watched it. I wasn't quite 16 yet. Um, yeah, so a little bit background. So both movies were directed by Robert Klaus, written by Fred Weintraub and his wife Sandra Weintraub. If those names sound familiar to you, they were also the ones that were in that helped direct and write Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee. It was produced by Golden Harvest Studios, which was well known to doing martial arts films overseas. Here, and of course, my copy was from Vinegar Syndrome that I got mine, and it is fantastic, even with the book. Um, so we're gonna kind of I've got like a sheet here. I forgot to tell Alex. I'm gonna jump around a lot. The trivia we'll do closer to the end, but let's start with China O'Brien 1. There it is, that bad boy there. So let's talk about China O'Brien 1. So this here, and this is I got this from Wikipedia. It is a martial arts action film starring Cynthia Rothrock. Um, and this is not right in here. But anyway, it was directed in a small town where China grew up. She was a police officer. She left her previous job due to accidentally shooting a kid there, even though Alex said he looked 30. Um, so we're starting the movie out, right? She's talking about she's teaching a martial arts class. Here's where it goes wrong. One of the students doesn't believe that this martial arts stuff doesn't work in the streets. So instead of encouraging the student to go, "Hey, martial arts is used for this," he goes, "I challenge you to a fight in an alley at nighttime." So he gets jumped. She thinks this is all staged. First off, martial arts teacher fighting in the streets, also a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we start this movie this way. So this is how it starts. Alex, when you started this, what were your thoughts of like starting off like, "Hey, here we go. Let's get the ball rolling." Were you a little bit like, "This is where the acting's going," or
So when the movie first started and she was giving out instructions and like really yelling like, "This is this move. and you do this, that, like when she's doing the like the training with the
Yeah.
martial arts and all that. It reminded me a lot of that Power Ranger tape, or maybe there's a few of them where Jason David Frank, that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Green Ranger?
Yeah, where
Yeah.
he had some VHS tapes, and like we had one when I was a kid, where it was like, hey, this is Power Rangers um licensing on it, but hey, I'm actually going to teach you how to do karate. I'm actually going to do the so like it felt very much like I'm watching an instructional video right now that's way over the top. And so like that was my first like gut feeling, was like, this gives me Power Ranger vibes, this gives me just really cheesiness vibes. And then the acting just kept going, and the sound effect. So I mean, I guess I don't know if you want me to say this yet. I mean, like we're talking about like the first fight even. But the things, I think a lot of the fights in these movies are legitimately, can be legitimately cool. Um the sound effects ruin it. Absolutely
Yeah.
ruin the film.
Yeah.
If there were not all these like just Power Ranger noises, like honestly, like
Yeah.
it's very much hey, we like Batman, hey, we like Super Sentai, we like Power Rangers. I guess Power Rangers might have not even been out yet, but like we like hearing the punching noises. We like hearing all these
Yeah.
things, and the kicking and the throwing, and just the awkwardness of the ADR and all of that. Just it ruins the movies. If that wasn't in that, then I feel like these movies might be just a little bit better. But
Yeah.
it just kind of hurts the tone of it, because it's trying to be serious, but then you just hear all these noises, and like some, even especially, we'll go later in the second one, but like the music sounds like I'm playing a Super Nintendo game sometimes. And like I'm walking
Yeah.
down the streets, I'm playing Turtles in Time, and they're fighting, and you're hearing all the punching noises and stuff, and it just doesn't fit the tone of these movies at all.
Yeah, it's a great start. Now, I did like the music during that fight scene, like
Mhm.
when she fights the main guy. That was great.
Mhm.
And she kinda definitely shows off some of her skills. Although I did find it weird, like, um, as she's fighting, right, her teacher goes to warn her, like, "Hey, this is not what we set up. This is a real fight," right? And then he has, like, a small fight scene or whatever, and I'm like, watching it, I'm like, "Dude, this looks well rehearsed."
Mhm.
Like, different choreography. But what happens is she ends up shooting a kid. So she's like, "I'm done. I'm quitting. I'm gonna leave the force." And she goes back home where her dad's the sheriff. Um, the transition from her leaving to there is quite funny because they're playing the music in her Chrysler LeBaron convertible, which almost reminds me of a movie called Freddy Got Fingered with Tom Green.
Mhm.
Remember he got the Chrysler LeBaron?
Yeah.
I can't think of anything else. But so she goes back home. Things are not well at home. Her dad is sheriff, but things are still not good. Um, I did like the fight scene in the bar. I thought that was like really well done.
Mhm. I
So she
thought so
stops
too.
she stops in this bar and it just escalated from there. Um, but she comes to find out at home that things aren't what they were when she left. Her dad is sheriff and he's having a lot of trouble because there's one guy named Summers that is controlling the town.
Mhm.
So it definitely kind of escalates quickly from there of her dad trying to be the right guy, and then there's the deputy for her dad. Um,
No, I'm just thinking about more in the movie. Uh,
as he's laughing,
I'm just thinking of like what's gonna happen next, and I don't want to spoil anything.
no, no, and just so you know, this will have spoilers. Not this movie came out in 1990. Okay,
Yeah, and you're
it's
never
like
gonna
a
watch it. None of
no,
you are ever
no.
going to watch this film.
But like what happens next is her dad is so there's this. here's what's weird is like, so she's home and she's bored, and her dad's like, "Hey, I gotta go take care of something." She goes, "Hey, I'll do a ride along with you," which to me is like, okay. And this is the scene at the lumber yard. Okay. So, but before we get there, we have to do this one part. So when she comes back, she's driving around town or whatever, and she bumps into an old friend named Matt, right? Who's Richard Norton, who's
Mhm.
another main character. So Alex brings this up because he comes over and he's a gym teacher now at the school, or he
Yeah.
works at the school. They don't
Yeah,
I don't think they
I
say
think
he's
he
a gym.
said that I think they said that he was a gym teacher.
Okay. So like he
He's
he's
jogging.
running, yeah, he's jogging with these kids and he sees her and he yells, "China." And he comes over. So Alex, you have to explain what you see in this scene that was like,
Oh,
what the
man.
hell?
It's so weird. So, like, the movie doesn't tell you who he is first, and so, like, my mind, I'm just like, "Oh, it's someone who she just knows or something." Like, I don't know if they're old childhood sweethearts. I don't know anything about it. And he's just like, "Oh, China. Wow, you're in town?" And he goes and runs, jogs on over to her. She's in like her convertible, and he just like goes, leans into the car and just like makes out with her. Like it's not even like a kiss on the cheek. It's not even just like,
Right.
like a friend kiss or whatever. It's just a straight up, yo, let me put my tongue in your mouth for like a good 5 seconds. That's how it felt to me.
Yeah.
It I don't know how actually long it was. It was just such an awkward scene. And then they just don't talk about it really.
Yeah. It's
It's
so
normal
awkward.
for that town, I guess.
I didn't think it was awkward until you brought it up. They hadn't seen each other in years.
Yeah.
And uh, so, with everything that's going on, I'm gonna go through a couple of the characters. So obviously we have China, played by Cynthia Rothrock, um, Matt, who's played by Richard Norton, Dakota is Keith Cook. Then there's the sheriff, Lickner, who works at he works with the sheriff's department. Once you see this character, you could see that he is not good at all. And then there's Summers. These are like the main people in this movie here. Um, what's crazy is so as she goes with her dad to the lumber yard, fight breaks out, right? So this movie literally is talking, then fight, talking, then fight. It is very well
It's a fighting game.
done with, yeah. It literally is. It's like Final Fight
Mhm.
with story. But so the fight scene at the lumberyard, I thought was really good. So Keith Cook at this point, by the way, who was in both Mortal Kombat movies. So a little trivia: this was like his first movie. Um, he had got onto a couple karate magazines, and he was doing tournaments, and they brought him in. If you would have watched him and said, "Hey, this is his first movie," wow. I think out of all three martial artists, he was probably the strongest out of all three.
He was the strongest, and he was honestly, even especially in the second movie, but like he was the best actor.
Yeah, absolutely. So this scene, he shows up. So I had to bring up a point here. So as they're fighting these bad guys that are attacking China and her dad, and this guy named Jake, because he said it's his lumber. Um, I, do you the part that makes me laugh? So as they're fighting, out of the blue, there's this hippie guy walking with like a rifle with a scope, right?
Mhm.
Where did this guy come from?
I don't know.
Like, he doesn't fit. All these guys look like lumberjacks, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Here's this
there's even the
guy.
one who like starts the chainsaw and everything, and he's
Yeah,
looking all like intimidating, and then like you said, like this random guy just pops up, and you're like, all right, were you just invited?
yeah, and so he's trying to get her dad in the scope, and then Keith Cook's character takes him out, right?
Hmm.
Um, so after this, that's when things are not going good because Lichtner has a listening device in the office, finds out China and her dad are going to call the FBI. So he, someone puts a bomb in his car and the deputy's car. So, so they both die. So it's a
It's so good.
it's so dramatic because she the phone rings. So the phone rings. He goes, "Okay, I'll be right there. Don't do anything." And he goes, "We got to go." So his daughter automatically goes, "I'm going to go with you because this seems like an emergency," which is not. I'm guessing it's not protocol for sheriffs
Yeah.
to bring your daughter. So she gets ready to go and the phone rings. It's the other guy, right?
Mhm.
Um, or it's Matt. It's so funny 'cause she goes, "Matt, I can't talk to you right now. I have to go." Like, so nonchalant. But then the
Mhm.
the car has a bomb. Car blows up. So then they're like, "Crap, we gotta call the other guy." He doesn't get the phone call, his car blows
Well,
up.
his
So
phone's
now there's
ringing as he's already walking outside, and his phone. We have to talk about Cynthia's acting in this scene, though, because it's probably the worst acting I've ever seen. Where she runs
uh,
around, acts like she's gonna get in the car, like she runs around and just like moves her hands, like she's gonna like she's throwing like invisible barrels like Donkey Kong, and then she like walks around it, and she runs again and tries to act like she's
uh,
gonna get at it, and then she runs back with her not mom, and then like she runs back to it again, and like she just keeps doing this. It's like it's fast forward and rewound a bunch of times, but I know it's not. I know it's her
yeah,
just trying to ad lib and just do random blocking, and it doesn't work, and it looks really, really stupid. And like once she like finally like calms down and stuff, and she's in the house, then she asks about like the other guy, and she's like, "Wait a minute, what's his phone number? I need his phone number now." Not mom. I forget who she is. Is she like a stepmom?
I think she's like, I don't know, because she did all like the cooking and cleaning and stuff. So I'm
Yeah, I
guessing
I
she's
thought she
like
was a stepmom at first because she like treats her like good but not good.
yeah,
um,
I think she's like just like a housekeeper
okay,
of some
then maybe,
sort.
but like she's like, I need his number. It's an emergency. I need it now. And then she finally gets the number, but she calls just a little too late. And then he just walks in his car, do 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 do, and then it explodes, and it's hilarious.
Yeah. At, I was thinking more of the dramatic run she did that was slow motion.
Oh, that too. That was
Yeah,
awful.
yeah, that was.
Yeah,
She's never gonna be on our show, is she? She's never gonna show up.
I don't think she knows who we
Um,
are, and you know what? That's
it's
fine.
okay.
I don't need her to know who I am.
Um, so at this point, China just, she buries her dad. She buries this other guy she knew. And they're like, "Hey, we need to figure out about sheriff." Blah blah blah. She goes back to pick up her dad's stuff. Lichtner and
Hmm.
Summers are in the office, and then the guy they arrested at the very beginning, her dad did, is now the deputy. So she's like, "I'm gonna run for sheriff."
Well, Lickner is already wearing her dad's badge.
Yeah, and so he and the funny thing is Summers' character. I'm not really. He's an okay actor, but he's not that good of an actor. So like when he gets emotional about things, it's definitely it's not there.
Hmm.
But obviously he was not happy that she came to get that stuff. And now that she's running, so the thing about Summers is so he owns the judge, he owns most of the town,
Hmm.
drugs, prostitution, everything there, including the weird scenes that make no sense to me. They show them kind of playing a poker game. This scene is very drawn out, and I don't know if you thought it was.
Hmm.
He kept saying, "Littner, are you gonna make a bet?" And it just drawn way too long.
Yeah, and they're just like, "Come on, don't hurry me," or something like that. Like
Yeah,
it's like I don't like to. Uh, yeah, because he's like, "Yeah, you're gonna make a bet because I don't. You just gotta decide. You just gotta do it quick." And it's like, who gambles like that? Who just does
yeah,
it
nobody
quick?
does. But like, obviously Summer's favorite thing to do is to beat women, and that scene was in there where he's like, he has this woman tied up and she's got bruises, and that scene to me was
Was that her friend? The high school?
no,
Okay, no,
no,
that's later than maybe.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But like it was just a weird, didn't need to be seen in there.
Hmm.
You already knew that he was a bad guy,
Hmm.
but they're not happy that she's running for sheriff. So she's in a parade and they got this big event, right? Where they're trying to get, people drawn up for this. Well, Summer sends his people in to stop this event.
Hmm.
Another fight. Now, this fight is much better.
Yeah,
Um, so
goes
I
on
want
too
to,
long though.
it does, but like you really get to see like Richard Norton style. You get to see her style. but also Keith Cook. My favorite part
He
was
takes out
the
another
guy.
sniper or something, doesn't he?
Yeah. My favorite part was that the guy's like, "Hey, what are you doing? That's my car." Like, very, very bad acting, right?
Yeah.
And these guys with baseball bats are hitting the car, and they're like, "Where'd he go?" Because Keith Cook's character jumps in there. And he's like, "I'm over here." I'm like, "So he's a magician now?"
Yeah.
He just disappeared out of the car. But that fight scene was really well done, showed off like how well he is. One thing we never brought up is he has this big black, like duct taped thing with a metal thing around his wrist. That's his second hand. And they show that the people at the Beaver Creek did this to him
Mhm.
because his mom was a prostitute there and he made a big stink about it because he was a motocross racer. But this is what he wears the whole time, right?
How can he play asteroids with that hand?
That
Like
was the other thing. He was like, but like, it's such a weird looking thing. Like, if your hand was, you know, not in use, why would you put it up in this thing? So, funny story was I found this on trivia. So, the reason he wore that is because he broke his hand during something. And so they're like, well, crap, we got to get this done. Right.
Mhm.
So they wrapped it up to say, like, they added that to the movie to make it look that way. That's why he wore it.
It's kinda like when an
Um,
actor, like an actress is pregnant and they're like, "Oh, we have to write this into the film." Instead, this is just, "Oh, you
yes.
broke your hand. We'll put it in the film somehow."
Yeah, so it's so funny because, like, at this moment, there's big fight scene that breaks out. They win, um, but then we get closer to election, right? Um, so there's very little talking between the rally and the actual election, right?
Mhm.
So Matt thinks it's a good idea to put a couple of his students at the polls with walkie talkies, right?
Yep.
And that way they can't cheat. Summers is already mad because he's like, "Hey, we have to win this thing or we have to go another route." Um, and so looking back as a parent, I'm like, "Hey, there could be danger, but I would like for your son to watch these polls.
I know.
We're gonna give,
Like, how old
we're
are
gonna give
they?
them, they're in high school,
Yeah.
like 16, 17.
That's right. Because yeah, I guess that makes sense. Because yeah, he's a teacher. So
So like we're gonna give him a walkie-talkie, it'll be okay."
mhm.
And so, there's a scene where Summers men come to take the poll box. Kid gets off that they're getting this happened, and of course, China, Matt show up, and a big fight breaks out in this gym. Right? I thought those fight scenes were really well done. What were your thoughts on at least that one? I thought that one looked really good.
That one in particular, yeah. I thought that one was really good. The movie I kind of want to bring up the quality a little bit because we're watching 4K like scans of the 35 millimeter film, which is like amazing, considering like how this probably looked for you back on VHS. Like VHS, um, I don't know if we've said this before on here, but I've had friends who said this, but like it's also kind of true. It's like VHS wasn't a bad format. It's just that everyone's
Mhm.
TVs were bad, and so like it's still like you probably watched it with like a not great TV when you were watching it back then, and so like you couldn't see everything. And there is a lot of film grain like when it comes to like the darker, like when they film inside, and I noticed it a lot like in these shots specifically. Um because I think they use two different cameras. Like I think they have one for outside and one for inside for one. But like yeah, I did notice like it is darker, so you see more like pixelated like digital. I guess it's not digital because it's 35 millimeter, but just like more uh film grain because of the lighting is just really weird and stuff. But I don't think that deterred from the fight scenes. I thought the fight scenes were really well done. I thought it was actually pretty cool to see like some of the like the ways that they do fight with all the objects around them. um yeah, this is probably one of the best fights in the movie. That's not saying much, but at the same time, like
Right.
this is one of the most actual entertaining parts. But as I've said before, the problem with these films is that Oh wow, this is actually kind of cool. It's like, oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
We're listening to these sound effects. Okay.
and I do wanna throw in, like, a little tidbit here. So, I was watching one of them has, like, a thing where it talks about, um, Cynthia Rothrock. So, before these were made, both Cynthia Rothrock and Richard Norton were working with Golden Harvest overseas doing Hong Kong films.
Hmm.
And she had a 3 contract film, so did he. And they're like, "Hey, we're gonna film a movie in Utah. Would you be game to do that?" And she's like, "Yeah, I would love to go back to the States and film." So that's where these films came from. Also, both these films were filmed at the exact same time, which
Hmm.
back then was crazy. I mean, I know, like, we think of, like, Avatar, right? I
Yeah.
think me and you were talking about that. There are scenes for the next movies being filmed at the time of something else
Hmm.
because they wanna try and get them in with either kids or growing up or, something, but, uh, that's crazy. If you watch closely, you will see people that are in the second film, as different characters in the first film, you
Yeah.
know? Um, so after she wins, she gets sworn in. And the first thing they're gonna go do, besides
Well, they have to
go to the
swear her in the middle of the night or something because
yeah,
she's just
so
like she goes to who's she go to? Is it the
she
judge
goes to the
or
judge's house.
yeah? And he's like, oh,
Yep,
I don't want to do this. It's fine. You're this. And then she like yells at him until finally she's like, and it cuts to like the next morning or whatever when they're
yeah,
she's sworn in.
I love it. I love it because Matt's character's like, "Grab your Bible," as he pushes the judge. I'm like,
Yeah.
"I don't know where you're from, but pushing a judge probably isn't the wisest idea,
No,
even if
definitely
he's
not.
corrupt."
Hmm.
Uh, but now we're kind of transitioning into the end of the film, right? Here's where, for me, watching it older, not 16-year-old Ben, I'm like, so there's a little bit of like there's some things happening that are like definitely holes in the plot. Um, so then they decide to get a bunch of people that want to volunteer, and they're going to deputize them,
She just gives everyone a Sheriff's badge.
including the 2 high school kids.
Yep.
Which, in my mind, I'm like, okay, so it probably is not the best. So they bust out the drug house, they bust out the prostitution house.
Hmm.
Now they're going to Beaver Creek. Now Littner at this point has no job, so he's just working for them, right? Um, so then she goes, I'm gonna try and serve this war. They shoot a bunch of guns at her, right? So Dakota's like, I'm gonna put my bike through the window and that's gonna start it.
And she's like, wait,
So
no, don't do that. And then he still does it anyway.
the thing that's funny, so he goes in, gets the guy with the bike with the
The
gun.
slow mo.
Yes, there's a big slow-mo. But did you notice when all the people like the deputized, it's like when they're coming in, it's like they were 2 by 2, right?
Hmm.
It was very choreographed. So a huge fight breaks out, right, in this bar. Um, I did not like this fight scene. I thought this was pretty weak,
I agree.
fight scene. Um, you know, uh, like, just so many scenes were like, "Oh my gosh, this is
Do
so
you know
weak."
why it's weak though? It's because Keith Cook didn't disarm a sniper or whatever again.
That is true.
Because he does it. I feel like he did that in the second movie. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but like I feel like he's always just like, I'm behind you. And he just like gets someone.
The way you said that reminds me of the guy on Family Guy when it's like the giant bee.
Oh yeah.
"Ah, I'm not gonna sting you. I might though."
Yeah.
Like,
That's
that's
what it
I
is.
see that that's what it is. Um, Great. They get in this big fight scene. Here's the crazy part. So one of the, Asian actors in it is in the second one, right? And as I'm watching this now, I'm like, I know him, right? I know him from somewhere. What is it? So Alex and I were talking because he's in both movies. That literally is so if anyone is listening or watching, I'm sure we've all seen the original Ninja Turtles, right? Shredder's second in command, that guy was in China O'Brien 1 and 2.
Tatsu.
Yep, and he has a bigger role in the second one.
Hmm.
But it's pretty crazy that he's in this fight scene here. They did Golden Harvest did use some of their Hong Kong stunt team.
Hmm.
I will say that when the fight scenes used the stunt teams, they looked better.
Yeah.
Obviously, Hong Kong cinema is just that.
Yeah.
That's why they get hurt all the time. Um, but at this point, they're all fighting. They find out that Summers is at his house. So Dakota jumps on his bike that he just crushed another man with, goes to get him, and they're like still fighting. But here's what's weird, like 2 seconds after he leaves, right? A couple seconds after Matt and China leave, right? And they're just speeding down the road in the car.
Hmm.
If you're on a motorbike and you're versus a car, I'm pretty sure you could catch up pretty quickly, but they don't.
Yeah.
Now he ends up at Summer's house. Summer's in the horse barn, and he yells, "Someone kill that son of a bitch," which is hilarious.
Hmm.
Um, that fight scene was really well done as
Yeah.
well.
I agree.
So now that they're fighting with, he's got a shovel, one guy's got a pitchfork. But
Hmm.
again, some of these people he was fighting were Hong Kong, um, from the Hong Kong team.
Yeah.
Um, Again, I think if you're looking at martial arts, it in my mind, I would rate it Keith, Richard, Cynthia. To be honest,
Yes.
because I think Richard Norton has some really good. Some of them are like, man, I just saw you take a 7 foot guy down, and now you're having a hard time with this guy.
Hmm.
Uh, they're fighting in the barn. The music definitely takes a tone to sound like it's in, I don't know, like Halloween
Hmm.
or something. Um, and then there's a short scene as they're kind of walking through the barn. Summers has got his gun, Dakota's got his. China and them finally show up, and Dakota's got him pinned in a barn. Didn't kill him. They thought he was going to kill him. So here's what's crazy: as they're walking out of the barn, Dakota's got him in handcuffs. You hear this gun go off. They both flip back. So the woman that was in the room that Summers was torturing shot him. So here's what I don't know: did she go out to the horse barn to get the gun? Because you see Dakota hang the gun up,
Yeah.
right?
Maybe.
Did she? Did she run out to the barn then run back in the house?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty crazy, and that's basically how the movie ends. So,
Yeah.
I got a couple of like trivia things here. Um, this was Keith Cook's first movie.
Hmm.
He was doing tours and stuff like that. You know, I think for being your first movie was really well done. So okay, I got a couple things here. What was your favorite scene in the movie?
Oh God.
Now
Don't
he's got to think.
don't put me on the spot like this. My favorite scene, as I said earlier, was when her dad's car exploded and she like just ran around freaking out because it was so stupid. Like that was like laugh at loud funny. Like this
Right.
movie, like these movies aren't like, I don't know. I guess I'm already saying it, but like these movies like aren't necessarily like so bad it's good. A lot of times it's just like this is kind of bad. But like that part where I was like, okay, all right, this is stupid and funny. But that one fight earlier, what do you say, like the gym fight, like the good one?
Yeah.
That one's probably my favorite scene. I really like that. Um, I think it isn't that is that the fight where Richard Norton is just like jump kicking everyone?
So like it looks like wrestling almost, right?
Cause like
Because
yeah, he's like has two guys around him like on like a mat, and then like he he like jump like kicks them, and then like turns around, jump kicks the other, and then flips the other. Like that was one of the scenes where I was like, yeah, wow, you I can see why you're good. You know, like you're actually doing these.
a couple of those guys look like they really were hurting though.
Yeah. I mean, like,
Um,
I don't think he missed like how he's supposed to, you know? Like I think he
yeah,
like actually jumped and like kicked their faces.
yeah. What about so I would agree. I think that's one of my favorite scenes through like the whole movie, that whole thing there. And then I also like Keith Cook's fight at the rally.
Yes.
Um, what about, and now we talked a little about your dislikes.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, the sound effects there.
Hmm.
Um, for me personally, watching it now versus when I first watched it, because when I first watched it, I'm like, this is the greatest movie ever made. Now, looking at, I love martial arts films, but looking at them now, I think watching, especially like Ip Man, right?
Hmm.
Or some of the movies that Donnie Yen and Jackie Chan's done later. I'm like, okay, so yeah, this was probably not that good. Um, what were like besides the sound effects? What were things you didn't like?
Movie's boring. Like and it's not even a like a problem with the actors. I don't think it's the acting. Like I think the like you said it like earlier. The movie doesn't really have like a good enough plot to keep itself going. The plot exists because the plot is an engine to get the fight scenes. That's
Yeah,
all this is. It is a fighting game. It is a final fight. It is a Street Fighter with the cutscenes in the middle. It really is just we need something very very basic so we can go have Keith Cook fight for a bit. So we can go
yeah,
have Cynthia Rock fight for a bit. Like there's yeah the plot in both of these but like in this one especially like doesn't need to exist. But I will say, and we'll get to the other one in a second, but like I feel like this plot for this film is better than the second film's plot. And that's not saying much. Because
right.
at least this one had an actual like real start and finish ish to a degree. Whereas the second movie like kind of it feels like the middle of the first movie. Like it just feels
Yeah,
like, oh, we're just thrown in. But there was like a beginning with her doing her martial arts class, shooting the kid, turning in her badge and her all of that. And so like there was a direction, there were things happening. So I just think it's kind of boring. I guess I should say. Like the plot is just there, like I said, to make the fight scenes happen, and the fight scenes are okay. I will say like the fight scenes can be really good, but the sound effects hurt it. And then when the 30-year-old kid died, he he fell over with no sound effects. He so like he gets shot. I think you hear a bullet from her, and then you see him in the alley, and he does one of those like I don't want to fall down in an alley because I'm gonna hurt myself. So I'm going to
right.
get on one knee and then just fall to the side. And it's just like one of those like, dude, you're an actor. Just actually fall down.
Right.
Or like fall against the wall. Like use the wall to prop yourself up. Don't look like you're faking your death like you're playing I don't know, like laser tag or something like that, you know? Like
So what was your if you had to rank this film
oh god.
in our scale that we use, um, what would your ranking be?
What's our scale again? 1 to 5?
Yeah, I
Uh
kinda know. I kinda know, but I wanna hear you say it.
are we a 10-point scale? Like do we have halves?
5, but we do have halves because I
Yeah.
think
Yeah,
Sonic,
that's what I'm
like
saying. Like yeah, do we have like halves that so it'd be a 10-point scale, so 5 plus the halves, that would be
oh, yeah.
10s. So, okay. Yeah, cuz I think we did halves for Sonic and stuff. So yeah. Um 1.5. I'll give it
I
a
was gonna
Lion
say
King 1.5.
I think I was gonna say 2, and I'll give it a 2.5 only because I feel like some of the fight scenes are really well done, but it is a very simplistic but also going into this, you kinda know what you're going into. You know that you're going into a low budget martial arts film, um, which, believe it or not, there is quite a cult following for this, as
That's
I
what I've
did my
seen.
research.
That's what I've seen
So,
as well.
yeah,
There
so
is a commentary on these as well. I did not listen to those,
yeah,
but
I haven't done that yet. The only thing I watched was I watched a couple of the things, which is were really good, like, they were taken off of Cynthia Rothrock's YouTube page,
mm,
some of them, but they had, like so let's just jump into China O'Brien too, okay? Because there's some things about this. So this takes place a year or so, I think it's like 2
2
years
years.
after,
Yeah.
and like they're having a parade. By the way, the same parade from the first one
Mhm.
is this parade. Um, because everything's cleaned up. The town has been great. But it doesn't start off that way. It starts off with a guy running through the woods. FBI's chasing him. He's killed everybody. Kills all these FBI people. Um, so his name's Baskin,
Mhm.
and so that's how it starts. It starts off with like, them chasing a fugitive, he killing them all, and then it goes to this. So he's Cynthia Rothrock's character has cleaned up the town. It's stayed clean. It's great. It's a great place to live. They use a lot of the same clips from the first one,
Yeah.
recycle them. Uh, we start this off, and then we start off with Keith Cook fighting in the park, which
Yeah.
was great.
Yeah.
Um,
I thought so.
So so that fight scene was great. So one of the thugs he beats up was on the commentary. He's like, "Yeah, I was a martial artist." They said, "Hey, you want to do this movie?" He's like, "Sure." Um, so that's how that starts off. But then Thea gets a call, and they have to go pick up this guy because he got drunk and he destroyed the bar, which I guess he does all the time.
Mhm.
And what was his name? I can't think of his name.
I don't remember his name either. I just remember his fight was awful because
Oh,
he just like when they oh, the editing in this was awful. That's what it was.
yes.
Because there's her like on like the side of the door and they just keep using those shots and then she goes and fights him for a bit and then she's back at the door.
And he's not that good of an actor. He speaks really, really, like, slow.
But I think he's
Uh,
also supposed to still be drunk too.
yes.
Mm.
Um,
But I do remember with his fight, he's he's like, I don't wanna I forget. He's like, I want you to leave or something like that. And she says, like, you know what'll happen to you, or what happened last time, or something like I forget exactly what it was. But basically he like runs in and charges at her, but like really, really slowly. Like he's like it's a fight in Spider-Man. Like he's the Rhino and like he's only moving in one direction and she like barely moves out of the way and he just hits the window and the window crashes and he's still kind of like this and then he turns around and it just does the exact same thing again. Like I understand that he's probably supposed to be drunk, but that doesn't excuse how poor this fight is.
yeah, and it's crazy because, like, Matt, Richard Norton's character is sitting there laughing. I'm like,
Yeah,
"Did you go?"
he's at the like car or something.
Yeah,
He's
he's
just
just
sitting over there.
watching, laughing.
Yeah.
Um, and they're playing, like, different music and stuff, so it's, like, funny. Um But yeah, like it seems like it's a fun and games thing for her. I don't know. But you also get to meet a couple of characters as well. Frank, Annie, and Jill. Um, and these are new characters. So Frank actually was the guy at the lumber yard in the first film. And then in this one, so he's there. Annie is really good friends with China. They've known each other forever. And then Jill is her daughter, but Frank's got a secret. So Frank, now that Baskin is out, Frank worked with Baskin on some pretty shady deals, stole $5 million from him, right?
Mhm.
And this is in the 90s.
Yeah.
So like that's a lot of money in the 90s. And so Frank, now that Baskin's out, he's like, I'm gonna kill everyone that's involved with this. So you kind of see him like the prosecutor gets killed, the judge gets killed that was in his case,
Mhm.
the detective that arrested was killed. So next is Frank. Um, so which by the way, Dakota is dating Jill. So one thing that brought me with this is like, hey, so if Dakota's dating Jill, what's the age gap there? Because he's not in school. He's a part of the sheriff's department. She's still in high school. Are we not looking at the age here, or
Yeah, I really don't know because Dakota gave me vibes that he was like mid 20s. Um, And so, yeah, maybe, 90s, small town, no one cares, I guess, which is horrible to say, but I think that's what it is.
Yeah, because I was like, yeah, I think it's just really weird. But so you meet these people kind of briefly. You see him more at the 4th of July show
Mhm.
because now that Baskin's out, he's killed these people, he's going after him. When you said that the it was weaker, um, this plot was much weaker than the other one.
Yeah.
Um, so going into that, yes, we're kind of like at this weak moment in the plot. It's very simplistic. We took like a little bit of a break here, but we're gonna jump right back into it. So Baskins killed everybody off. The only person left is Frank and to get his money. Um, so as they're watching the fireworks, I'm guessing it's around 4th of July, Baskin's men show up with guns and a giant crowd and is like, hey, Frankie, you're coming with us. Tries to take all three of them with him. And China notices it. Large group of people. China's like, hey, why are they going? She looks so forward to the fireworks.
Yeah, China and Matt were together. So again, like it's showing me I guess they're more than friends at this point. Like cuz they don't seem very romantic towards each other except in that one scene where he just makes out
Right.
with her for that very first time. But like otherwise like they're really not like romantic unless they're just hanging out cuz she's lonely, she has no one else there in that small town maybe.
Right.
Um because they're sitting together. Everyone else in the fireworks are couples.
And his
So,
hand is around her over her shoulder.
yeah,
Like
and
they're
so
cuddled up.
yeah, and he does that a couple times, like, even near the end of this film, like, they, like, walk away and he's, like, kinda holding her, but, like,
Yeah.
they don't say anything. It's just I don't know. It's been 2
Yeah.
years, so maybe they are,
I
going
mean
out.
I mean, maybe. So another fight breaks out. This one is I feel like it's not as
A
good as
gunshot
the
starts it.
yeah, gunshot starts it. I don't think this one is just as good as the rally one, but it is pretty good. It definitely shows off more of everyone's fighting styles.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, now I will say Cynthia Rothrock, if she gets something that's like a bow staff or something, that was her weapon. I
Yep.
mean, to be honest. So that fight seems pretty good. Of course, if you're watching it, Keith Cook totally steals the show.
Always.
His is very, very stylized.
Mhm.
Um, so once this all breaks up, she tries to talk to Annie and them. They're like, "We're leaving." Frank was like, "We're leaving, right?" Um, Baskin calls Frank at work saying, "Hey, I want my money." And what happens is Dakota goes to pick up Jill from school. They get home. Guess who's at the house? Baskin's boys.
Mhm.
And a fight breaks out there. He's winning, but all of a sudden, someone comes out of nowhere, hits him with a gun, and now he's knocked out.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because if you've seen him in this film at the beginning, plus the other films, I personally don't think that would have caught him off guard.
No.
Um, so now Baskin's got Annie, Jill, and Dakota.
Yeah. They're just all in that
Um,
van.
they're all in that van. Um, Baskin talks with Frank, tries to get something set up. Uh, China figures out there's something wrong, goes talks to Frank, finds out. He tells her what's going on. So she now knows. It's like, all right, we got to play this safe because there's a car down the street. We know they're watching you. Let's just play this smart.
Mhm.
Um, so they have a plan. The plan is pretty awful. Their plan basically is like, we're going to drive in there, sneak up on people. But all these people you have to understand, Baskin was military. These are all old military friends. But
Yeah.
anyway, they're holding a ransom. Frank shows up with the suitcase of money, and China, Matt, and Dakota or Matt are another guy that's part of the sheriff's department are slowly taking people out.
Mhm.
Right. I have to say, before this, there's a fight scene between Baskin's brother and Dakota.
Mhm.
Really well done. His hands are tied, and this guy's like gonna fight him. And when Dakota starts winning, that's when everyone jumps in on him.
Yeah.
That scene happened
Mhm.
um, before this, but as we're now they're trying to get people free. You know, this scene's kind of weird to me because they all have guns, right? But China's rule on guns, she doesn't use guns.
Yeah.
I should probably say that. Another fight scene breaks out. But at this point, we're almost done with the movie. So when Alex was like, I felt like it was the middle of another movie, everything escalates so quickly. Now, granted, I knew they were on a budget. I know that they were trying to do two films at once. So maybe that's where that disconnect was. But this film just felt short in story wise.
Mhm.
Um, Now, the Sonic movie was shorter, yes, but it got everything you needed in the story.
Yeah.
This just happens like very little talk, mostly fight scenes.
Also, there are too many characters in these.
Yes, um, there's a lot more characters. I didn't even write them all down because some of them were so insignificant.
Yeah.
Um, but as they make this heroic escape, they go back to the sheriff's department, right?
Mhm.
They're all going to hold up there until they can figure out what to do. Um, China calls the FBI. The guy they were supposed to talk to isn't there. The other guy works for Baskin. So Baskin must be really connected. Can we just say that?
Yeah, and cuz I remember this where she gets the secretary and the secretary is like, "Oh, that officer that agent isn't here." And then she reaches out to the guy who's underneath Baskin and he answers and talks. He's like, "Hey, I'm this." And she's like, "Oh, I'm talking about this case." And then the phone lines get cut. And so like all the phone lines are starting to get cut at this point.
So Baskin got extra guys and they're gonna take over the whole town,
Yeah.
right? Um, you would think this is a great opportunity to do some crazy stuff, which it's a lot of fight scenes. I think you said it. This is where it feels like was drawn out.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, you froze. You froze on me for audio listeners, or I guess there are no audio listeners for video. You
So
froze
there is a fight
completely.
scene between him.
You froze completely. Now you're back. Sorry.
Okay, not sure what that was. So there is a scene with Billy Blanks who shows up. He's one of
Yes.
the bad guys. He fights with Keith Cook. Doing some research, I found out that that scene was longer, but because of budgetary reasons, they had to cut it.
It seemed pretty quick
It
for
did.
especially for Billy Blanks.
It seemed like they were pretty evenly matched at the beginning.
Yeah.
Um, but then like all of a sudden the tails turned pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Um, my favorite scene here is as the guys are going through the town, they go to like they're in the back alley of this Chinese restaurant and they're kicking over boxes and stuff. And these Alex
They
is
have
laughing.
their like big knives and they just
These
slice everyone's shirts.
So these two guys come out of they're Asian
Is it
and
2? I
they
thought it
have
was 3 of them.
two of them
Okay.
and they have these big butcher knives, right? And they do all the slicing on the two guys are knocking crap over. And then they do like this crazy one swing and then they kick him in the head. Why would
Why was
I'm
that
just
there?
confused. I'm just confused why that scene was even put in.
I think it
Super
was
confused.
supposed to be comedy for some reason.
But the town is being taken over. Like no one is safe. And this is what they put in. I mean,
I
it
guess unless maybe those are cameos. Like maybe those 2 people are who had the knives, like maybe they're in like other like films in Hong Kong and stuff. Like maybe that's
I
what it
mean,
is.
maybe I'll have to do some more research on it. Um,
I don't think you need to. No one's ever going to talk about this film again.
uh, but it's it all kind of escalates to the very end. Um, but like this again, the same guy that was in the Turtles movie, he has these claws,
Mhm.
and they make that seem to be more dramatic than what it was.
Yeah.
Like he comes out and he's got these metal claws, and it looks like there's like wires connected to him, so I don't know if there's, like, poison in them
Yeah, I don't know
or
either.
what, I don't know. But he
Hydraulics.
fights with yeah, he fights with China, and it ends bad for him, he dies.
Yeah.
But then there's another scene where this guy comes out, it's the guy in the blue jean jacket, he goes to fight China, right? And he's doing all these crazy kicks and stuff like that, and she, like, motions him to come on, they fight for a second, and she does something, and he gets thrown through a wall.
Mhm.
This guy got thrown through a brick wall.
Yep.
Um, here's where the movie just is this is the end of the movie, by the way,
Yeah.
and here's where it gets really crazy. They show the family leaving because they throw tear gas in the sheriff's department, so the family with the big guy, they all leave out the back door, you know,
Mhm.
Baskin is there, shoots Frank, right?
Mhm.
And then Annie grabs the shotgun and shoots him a couple times.
Yeah.
Movie's over. Bam.
Well, also
I
you forgot about the one guy, the other officer guy. He gets shot randomly and
oh
dies
yeah,
horribly. He gets shot like
yeah.
10 times.
So he was gonna leave town and go to the FBI,
Yeah.
and so he sneaks out to his car, but he gets like so here's the thing is he's getting shot at, which is weird because he's not on a normal road anymore.
Yeah.
And he gets shot. He gets out of the car to like shoot back, and they have like assault rifles, and he's got
Like there's
this
so much blood. Like this is the most blood that was
yeah.
in any of these movies.
So he is, which is funny because he was a bad guy in the first film.
Yeah, I mean
He was
he ain't gonna be in China O'Brien 3.
no, he's not. But like after that, there's a funeral and movie's over.
Yeah, the movie ends and yeah, it's really quick. And I think it does it end with China and Matt walking together and he's kind of holding her. So I
Yeah,
because I remember that.
the lady that answers the phones and stuff dies as well.
Yeah.
And so they have like a casket for her, and then there's a casket for Frank. And they talk about how Annie donated some of that money to some hospital or
Yeah, I
whatever.
think they
And
say something that like kind of leads on to like, oh man, we gotta protect the town or something, and like it's like, oh, there's gonna be a sequel, and no, there was never.
yes. So same thing. What was your favorite scene? And then what was a dislike or like for this one?
Um, God, oh, okay, I didn't. Out of the two, I don't really like this film at all. I think the first film had. I think the first film is a better film. But I do agree with you where like some of these fight scenes and like the people who they have in them are better than the first film. And so for what it is, like it's the fights are better, but the loose plot that's trying to drive it towards the fights isn't as good. Um I don't know if I have a favorite scene, to be honest. Like there
Oh,
aren't really any like that I can like pinpoint and think of. And I just watched this like not even 3 hours ago. And
right.
like I can't like think of like a favorite scene of mine. Um like yeah, I don't think
Oh,
there is one. Like I think I don't know, maybe just Keith Cook doing his thing. Like I think anything with
yeah.
Keith Cook, he really does save the movies. Like if Keith Cook wasn't in these movies, I don't think anyone would like these as much. Um yeah,
And
I would
and
say that.
I will say my favorite scene. So the two punks he beat up at the very beginning are also part of Baskin's crew now, I guess.
Mhm.
So there's a scene where he fights both of them, and then Billy Blank shows up.
Yes.
That whole scene between them and Billy Blanks was my favorite. Um, and the fact that these both came out in 1990, they came out really close together. I think there were like someone said at one point they were selling it on DVD as like a two pack, right? For these.
Yeah.
Um, Same thing. I felt like this was such a short film, very loose plot, but again, they had a budget for two films. So I see the point of them like, hey, we got this budget, let's do two films. right?
Mhm.
I mean, if you look on eBay and you try to buy the VHS for this or the double disc DVD, they're expensive. You know, it's got a cult following
Yeah.
out there. Um, so you know, what were your thoughts? So if you had to score this one, what would your score be on this one?
A 1 because I gave the other one a 1.5.
Yeah, I'm about a two. I guess when you look in childhood nostalgia sometimes or younger, you base it too much on that. I watching him now when I'm older. Now I will say that the Vinegar Syndrome box set is really cool.
It is
Um,
really cool.
it's got the I know he held up the book or whatever, but it on the Blu-ray, it's got a ton of different there's a making of. So the making of is literally made why they were shooting this. So like an old VHS camera walking around talking with everybody.
Hmm.
Like how cool is that? Um, you know, uh and then there's a bunch of stuff where like Cynthia Rothrock talks, Richard Norton talks, Keith Cook talks. Um even the guy that was the punk at the beginning and the end of the movie, he
Mhm.
talks. The stripper shooter lady that's in the second one, she talked. By the way, she was just 18. She had no idea that's what she was going to be doing.
Oh my god. Was she the one in the shower or was that Jill?
That was somebody else. Yeah.
Okay. Cuz yeah, I mean, I guess if we're going to talk about dislikes, I don't like how sexual the second movie was just for no reason.
I mean, Baskin looks like the Marlboro man, but he is definitely getting the ladies.
Yeah, like I mean at the very beginning, like gets the stripper and like that scene just goes way too long. Um yeah, it just
Yeah.
keeps going. But
He,
then what I explained to you off camera was that because this is in 4K now, it's been rescanned. Like there is a scene where like you see someone go into the shower and they're with someone else in the shower and the girl who goes in like has like a swimsuit on or something. But you wouldn't notice that like back in the day on VHS or whatever, but because it's so scanned like super scanned for this 4K, you can see like a little bit of the movie magic where it's like, oh, okay, they just wore like a skin color thing or whatever.
yeah. And I will say that this was, I think it was like 40 or 50 bucks, I think, maybe 60 for these, but there's Blu-ray and 4K on there.
Yeah.
So now if you were to rate the box set, what would you rate the box set?
See, I don't know if I could do that because I didn't really experience the box set fully.
That is
Um,
true.
so I don't know. I mean, I would say presentation's pretty good. And they tried. I don't like how the 4Ks were really weird about on the menu is very very bare bones.
Oh, it
It
is.
has play, it has audio, and then it has like I forget what they call it, but there's this thing where it says like feature or not feature something, and there's five of them. And I didn't know what that meant. I thought those were special features at first, and so after I watched the show or the movie for the first one, I clicked on it, and then I noticed the movie was just playing again. I was like, oh, these are chapters. There are five chapters, and they just put it on the main thing instead of putting it in its own section. All right. So I thought that was kind of weird. But yeah, I mean, it seems like it's got a lot of love from this box set. So I'm sure like they put a lot into this. So I'm sure people who like enjoy these films would think that this box set's worth it, even if these films are garbage.
Yeah. And I think again, they're playing off of people's nostalgia. So when you go onto their website, they have a lot of different movies that I'm like, who's asking for this? But somebody obviously is. Um, so well, we're gonna be doing a lot more of these things. We're gonna kind of do some different things. They're not always gonna be movies. Um, we do actually an audio podcast. Is that the next one we're doing probably?
No, it's not. But who's asking for this?
I mean, somebody is. I actually just saw somebody, one of the YouTubers I watch, they
Yeah,
have
Andre just opened up a different one.
That's what it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because these are
Um,
all on sale everywhere right now because of Mario Day. Um, so I saw like a different version, like there's a different box set of this that's out now. But it's still from the same umbrella entertainment people from Australia. So
yeah, that's what he said. So, yeah, I mean, we grow attached to things, but we also do a bi-weekly audio podcast. Would love for you guys to check out. We are at all major platforms, whether it's Spotify, Apple. We are now on Blue Sky. We'd love for you to go there and follow us on Blue Sky. We're on Facebook, YouTube. So we do the audio releases every other week on a Wednesday. The video version of that releases on Friday of that same week. So you can watch us both ways. Definitely hit subscribe on YouTube as well. Uh,
every week you get
besides,
something new
yeah,
as well
every week.
because every other week is the podcast and then the in between weeks for the most part unless we're busy for some reason but like we would have a special like this. So
Yeah. So besides me making you watch these movies, do you have anything else to say or
um you know, don't don't get at it, don't get these movies. That's what I have to say. Don't get at these movies, but get at it.
get at it?